Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are here today, we are going to talk about improving productivity with continuous integration and delivery. Now, here's the big challenge I have, so you guys have to help me, is the fact that I think I'm the last presentation. Never good slot. So because of that, I'm going to need, I know we're far, but I'm going to check you guys for nods and not nods. So if I'm saying something you're like, hey, I'm not getting it, just kind of, you can even wave at me. You can't really yell at me. I don't know if I will hear you. But we're going to have a conversation because it's the end of the day, and I want you guys to stay awake. So first, let me introduce myself. I'm Tara Walker. I'm a senior technical evangelist, which means I can't save anyone's soul, but I can code. So I can code and talk and code, and that's what we do. You can follow me at Tara W. I tweet things about coding and AWS and cloud services. All right, with that, enough about me. Let's get started. What we're going to talk about today is the why and what of DevOps. If you're in this room, I'm really hoping that you're already all in DevOps. The challenge with this is I find that people are all in with some parts of DevOps, but not others. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about, so what is this CICD thing she's up here talking about? I've come a long way to talk to you. You probably can hear the accent. It's not French. It is definitely Southern and US, so you'll have to bear with that. But I came a long way to talk about what is CICD for you guys. And then we're going to talk about enabling DevOps, these AWS services for CICD. And then we're going to put it in practice. There's nothing better than doing a demo. Hopefully the demo guys will be kind. But we're going to try to take an application, release it, and see how this works. All right, let's get on board. So the first thing I want to talk about with CICD is the fact that, and I'm not going to read the slide, you guys kind of know what DevOps is, but the one thing I want to talk about on this slide is the fact that people get the practices. We all are in the buzzwords. We're all about, oh, yeah, the microservices, I'm all in. But the one thing to truly implement DevOps in the right way, in the correct way, in the best way, is first understanding that the part of DevOps that people often forget is that you must change the culture. Dev and ops are coming together. When I was a software engineer, I'll be quite frank, never worried about ops at first. I was like, I'm done with my code, throw it over the cubicle, over the boundary, whatever they do with it, that's their business. That day is gone. Software engineers need to be just as familiar with ops as ops needs to be familiar with the software development cycle. So those barriers, those silos, they're gone. So if you're going to implement DevOps in the right way, the first thing you must think about is the fact that your culture has to change. You must have a shared responsibility model. There has to be visibility and communication. And quite frankly, that's not something we've really done well as a development org, or even an ops org, talking amongst each other. That culture must change if we're going to actually implement some real CICD and some ops. So where CICD comes in, it's a practice, right? You've heard a lot about microservices-based architectures, and they are great. And the way to implement those successfully is to implement practices like CICD, continuous integration and continuous delivery. The first thing you also need to think about if we're going to really go down this DevOps model is everything is code. So I have infrastructure as code? No, everything is code. Whether it's your PDF that explains what your process is, whether it's actually your bash script to implement your models or implement your test data, everything, and I do mean absolutely everything is code. And the thing that I want to say that people don't think about is when we're doing CI/CD, if you haven't gotten to this thing called continuous deployment, we'll talk about what that is, monitor and log and monitor. So you really need to understand that CI/CD, or continuous integration in development, is a process that is a part of your culture change, is a process that's a part of best practices, and then the tools come together to implement your releases. So I wanted to spend a little time with that because people love CI/CD, but the trick is they never think about the fact that I really need to alter my culture as well. So some of these DevOps best practices we talk about, you want to move away from a monolithic application if you're really doing things around DevOps in the appropriate way. Caveat, is everything appropriate for microservices? You guys are quiet. You can shake, you can yell and be like, no. Well, I'll tell you no. But if you can implement microservices, it's a great way to make sure that you're decoupling from that monolith. But I'll be the first to say everything doesn't fit this model. Understand that microservice is an architecture. It's a DevOps practice. Use it wisely. Next thing I talked about was infrastructure as code. Everything is code. Everything is code. Everything is code. And then why does it matter? So this study actually came out from a survey that was done from Puppet from 2017, so not too far away. And they found that people who implement DevOps successfully, these numbers are huge if you think about it, they have a 5 times lower change failure rate. If you know anything about ops, and I think you do because you guys are in the room, you know that once a bug hits production, the cost is skyrocketed. You want to proactively find those bugs prior to that failure hitting production and your customers feeling the brunt of that failure. So the fact that you can lower your failure rate of your change between your innovations by 5 times is absolutely unequivocally huge. Now, the number that blew me away, quite frankly, and I don't know if it's blowing you away like it is me, you have a 440 times faster from commit. The minute they put that code into your code repository, that commit repository you have, to deployment, you can do that 440 times faster. What does that mean? You get to market faster. And if you guys understand, the reason why we're in this business is to actually serve consumers with hopefully great software products and technology. The fact that we can get to from source all the way to production, to deployment, 440 times faster is a huge number to understand. DevOps really makes a significant difference in your processes. You can have 46 times more deployments. That means 46 times more enhancements. Let's be frank. As an engineer, you know, whoever had to get that maintenance call was like, oh, you're on maintenance. But imagine if you have implemented things so successfully that you're now doing more innovation than you are maintaining. That's where we all want to be. And then that means, of course, that's 44% times more code fit on new features, and all of us want to tinker and do the new cool stuff. So DevOps really matters in your infrastructure. It's a key thing to do. So let's talk about Amazon's story. We didn't have this initially. And so what was our process? Let's be quick. We wrote code, then we waited. And then we wrote some more code, we built it, we waited. We tried to deploy the test. What did we do then? Yes, you got it. We waited. And finally, it actually got to deploy to production. Now, from that writing code, it might have been minutes to days, but notice that got incrementally worse. So minutes to days can obviously add up to weeks to get your code and your production out there. And as Amazon, you guys want your products, you want new services quickly. We couldn't really do that with this next model. I mean, again, we're really getting into weeks time frame. Now, by implementing the DevOps process we're talking about today, we've reduced our production rate of getting from source to deployment from weeks to hours. Ladies and gentlemen, DevOps matters. And it's really essential to all of your processes. So this is by 2014, we have even gotten faster. So we're talking about thousands of service teams across Amazon's. We are working very hard to make sure we're shipping out service to you. We practice continuous delivery. So this is just not, oh, this is nice to talk about on stage. We are eating our own dog food. We can talk about these things and the benefits of them because we've lived them at Amazon, quite frankly. And this number, you should really think about. The fact that we have 50 million deployments doing this process, and we're down to doing this in hours. If you ever follow our innovation timeline, I mean, quite frankly, it's really fantastic for us to see even inside of Amazon, the fact that each year, the innovations we have, the services released, they go from, oh, we did 500 this year, we're at 700 this year, oh, we're at 1,000. And the reason why we can do that and to provide those services to you and be customer obsessed is because we're following a continuous delivery, a continuous integration process. We're using those practices along with that culture change and those tools to make this 50 million deployments happen. Click for me. So, what are these best practices? It says of Amazon developers, but quite frankly, it should be of all developers. The first thing I'm going to say is continuous integration and continuous delivery is a must. There is no more time of being on the fence for this. It is a must if you really want to have a best practice in your organization for writing and deploying code, solutions, and technology. CICD is now the standard. It is a best practice. Everything in code is code. I said that. But what I didn't say is everything goes in your repo. If you're practicing continuous integration and continuous delivery, that means every piece, whether it's my test, whether it's, oh, I'm going to do this build on multiple stages, and I have scripts for each one of them. I may have different types of deployment targets. Everything, and I do mean everything, should not only be considered code, but should go into your repository. There is nothing that should not go into your repository at this point. You're going to start with continuous delivery. That's gated promotion. And then you're going to build up to continuous deployment. That's the goal for everyone, ladies and gentlemen, to get to continuous deployment, where you're hands off, where I put some code out there. I had a test. The test failed. It knows how to do some regression testing. It knows where are the key points to fix. Everything should be at a point where we're trying to go toward continuous deployment. And that's not an easy process. The first thing you should know if you're going to start this is you need to start small and then go more broadly. So you start first with canaries and you test. You're going to then maybe deploy to an AZ, then you test. You're going to deploy to a region and you test. You're going to deploy to staging, and what are you guys are going to do? Anyone? Test. Thank you. Are you guys with me? I know it's the end of the day, but we're going to test. Testing is one of the most important things you can think about doing. So now we've talked about what DevOps is. We're all on the same page. We got it. I can leave the stage, right? Now let's talk about CICD. When we're talking about continuous integration and continuous deployment, there are 5 major phases of your release and monitor process. Notice I didn't just say release, I said release and monitor. People seem to forget that that is a key part of the stages of continuous integration and deployment where we're trying to go, but continuous integration and delivery, the monitoring is key because we can't get to continuous deployment without this. So what are they? The first is obviously source. You're going to check in your source like your Java files, your CS file, your C# files. I'm language agnostic, so I love all code, so you're going to put all of that into your repository. You should probably do a peer review of new code. That's something that is a little bit different for some people and old school for others, but you should probably do a review of that. Then you're going to compile your code, do unit testing, style checking, et cetera. That's in your build phase. In your test phase, again, you're going to test a lot. If you're doing something around this and not testing, ladies and gentlemen, you are, quite frankly, wasting your time. You're not doing what you need to do to make sure that your deployments are going to be successful. So this testing phase is important, and I commented about it a lot because testing is something, quite frankly, most of us don't like to do, but it's so essential in this day and age. So you're going to do your integration test with systems, regression, et cetera, your UIs test, your penetration test, security. Your penetration test should come here, and you should make sure that you are secure. And we try to do some things to help you out with that, but again, this is where that goes. And then we're going to work on deployment. If my clicker would allow me to work on deployment, maybe, maybe not. Okay, well, I will go toward and click the button since it doesn't want to work with me. Of course, when I walk off stage, it works. Yeah, got it. Then you're going to deploy. This is to production environments. This also can be in stages in beta. And then you're going to monitor your code. So I want you to think about these 5 phases because we're going to talk about the services now that really help you to implement these phases successfully. So we have, obviously, the 5 here. Let's see if the clicker wants to work. If I get closer again, is that what's going on today? I have to get close. Yeah, we're going to give up on the clicker. No worries. As I get close, it goes in. I'll stay close. All right, so now that we have the levels we talked about, let me talk about the first 4 and what that means. So anyone want to guess? I know it's hard for you out here, but anyone want to guess what continuous integration goes toward? How far does that go? Does it go all the way to deployment? Anyone want to guess? Don't be shy. Test. Someone said test. Does continuous integration go all the way to test? You're absolutely right. So continuous integration, this part of this process will go into your entering into your test phase. When you talk about your continuous delivery, then we're going to go all the way to deployment. And you see, once again, we're going to do gated deployments. You know, something that was interesting to me, I've known for a while, but when I first found out, I thought it was shocking. When I say deploy to canaries, right, everyone knows what that is, but it was really interesting how that started, right? Miners used to actually send a canary in to make sure the mine was safe. And if he didn't make it, they knew that the mine wasn't safe. This is the same concepts here. We want you to do gated deployments because we want to make sure it's safe before you deploy it out in the wild. So make sure with continuous delivery, this is a gated deployment. You are watching it. You're making sure you're kind of still touching and feeling it, making sure things are right when you go to deployment. So that is there to remember that this is a gated deployment. This is not full hands-off automated. Now, when we grow up, what we want to do is get to continuous deployment. That's all of our goal. And continuous deployment, what you should notice there is I don't have the gated symbol there. Because continuous deployment, once we have gotten really good at our continuous integration and delivery, we should be able to automate the things that typically go wrong. Now, obviously, monitoring is still very key. But what if I'm monitoring and I have an issue? Wouldn't it be great, because I've automated this, that not only do you get that buzz, that page, et cetera, but if it's a common error, I can send something to automatically correct this. This is where we want to go. All right, so now that we have our release process phases, this clicker is really not working with me. All right, now let's talk about the services that enable DevOps. So we have a few services that are really key to this. The first thing you need to know is our DevOps portfolio is pretty vast. You can see some of the things on the slide there. For continuous delivery tool chain, continuous integration, we have CodeStar, CodeCommit. I'll talk about those in detail. But for infrastructure as code, we have CloudFormation templates. You guys are probably familiar. We have OpsWorks. We have OpsWorks for Chef. And something that's not up here, and this is totally my fault, and Hector, who was on before, would probably shake his head at me. We also have, for serverless, AWS SAM. So we have the serverless application model that also helps you to have your infrastructure as code to build your environment. So don't forget about that, even though my slide I was remiss in putting on there. For monitoring and logging, we have X-Ray, we have CloudWatch, CloudTrail, as well as AWS Config. Now, how many, you can raise your hand because I can see you from here, how many of you guys have used X-Ray or even know what it is? There's no hands going up. 1, 2, wow, 3. Okay, we got our hands cut out for us. So let me just quickly tell you that this is going to be a key when you talk about large-scale distributed deployments. I'll talk about X-Ray in more detail now that I know that we got to do a little bit better job to let you guys know what that is. So when you put these code services together in those models, those release phases that we talked about, the first thing is I'm going to edit my code. If I'm going to do continuous integration and delivery, I need my IDE, my integrated development environments, to be tied as a part of my pipeline, my deployment pipeline. What we support right now is, obviously, we have, if you guys don't know, hopefully you do, we've released IDE in the cloud called Cloud9, AWS Cloud9. You also can use tools that you're already familiar with. Visual Studio, Command Line, hey, nothing's wrong with that. Eclipse, and the like. Now, once you do that and edit it, then you're going to go to your code commit. This is where your source phase comes in. After we get to code commit, you have your build phase. So your build phase is obviously where you're going to build this. This is where you can do different types of builds. You're going to test. You see, code build is still there with tests, because I actually can build automated tests with code build as well. And then I have my deployment, and deploy is going to be done with code deploy. Now, that's great. Those are the services there. How do I tie those things together so this is automated? This is where code pipeline comes in. This is where I can build the various stages that I want, have code pipeline say, hey, wait a minute, a commit was made. Let's kick off a build. Let's kick off several builds, in fact, because I might want to have a different type of build to test against. And then, okay, great, my build is completed. I need to build those tests and now to run them against those builds. And now I'm ready to deploy. So code pipeline actually is where you start your automated process. And this allows you to really coordinate your continuous delivery development chain. Now, you see this thing at the top. I hope you guys have heard of this. CodeStar. Anyone heard of CodeStar? Oh, man, I got my work cut out for me. OK, so only a few hands. If you go and check out the AWS blog, when we released CodeStar, I wrote a blog on what we call the Jeff Barr blog, but the main AWS blog. I wrote a blog post on that blog talking about how CodeStar really, truly helps you start developing in AWS in minutes. That means when I go to CodeStar, and we'll demo this in a minute, I can actually click a button, have it create all of these different services for me, as well as deploy my application, create my pipeline, and then start that process. You're actually off to the races with developing with AWS in minutes. And so we're going to actually demo that when I build my application. Now, I'm going to make sure you know that when I'm enabling this as well, we have code build can be used with third-party testing tools. So when you test, you don't have to just use code build. You may be already using things out there, Jenkins and the like. We're not leaving you out with that. If you have some tools that you already use, we have the ability to tie into those. If you have project management tools like Jira, you'll find that things like CodeStar tie into those. So you have third-party tools that you can use for test as it is. Now, monitoring, once again, if we're doing distributed applications, and if we're doing it the way we should be doing it, we have X-Ray and CloudWatch. They're going to be your friends for monitoring. What's cool about both of those is the fact that I can trigger activities from what X-Ray and CloudWatch detects. This is where we're getting toward our continuous deployments. All right, let's see if we can get this to go with me. So if we put these back in, again, if we're having monitoring, we still have the pipeline that's created. We can use those third-party tools, but we just add that monitoring to it. All right. Now, there's two types of continuous delivery that I think most of you guys will use. The first is going to be continuous delivery for containers. I'm sure all of you all are very interested in containers. Abby did a great job of talking about some offering for containers. So when I talk about a continuous delivery for containers, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have, obviously, my code commit or in GitHub. So you can use a different code repository. We have AWS code commit. We also have GitHub that you can use. The next thing I'm going to do is have my code pipeline set up so that it can now automate the different phases. And then I'm going to have either code build, or like I said, you can do a Jenkins. The thing with the containers then is this build will tie to Amazon ECR. So this is a container process. If you're building things where you're releasing with containers, this is the appropriate model for that. And then once I have that build done, again, with using ECR, then I'm going to use ECS to actually deploy that build. So this is a continuous delivery architecture when you're looking at containers. If I'm looking at serverless, it's a little bit different. So I want to make sure you kind of know the differences and what our architecture looks like. When I'm thinking about serverless, the first thing I would do is I'm obviously still going to build a pipeline. I can author, again, as I said, in different IDEs. We still have, obviously, Cloud9 and other things to do that. Then I'm going to go to my source repository. So that looks a little bit similar. I can obviously start serverless. This is why I have CodeStar with that pipeline with that. So that's baked into that. I'm going to do a build with code build. And then I can deploy directly to Lambda. So I actually don't have to deploy to a server. I can actually have a serverless build of my website, a serverless build of my complete functionality, no matter what type of production environment it is. And this is where SAM would come in. And then I would monitor with X-Ray or CloudWatch, because I can implement X-Ray into it. So real quick before we go to a demo, AWS code commit. This is where your source control is going to be everything, and everything is code. Code build, this is a fully managed service. It is going to compile your source code no matter what production environment. We pretty much support everything. That includes Windows workloads, because people typically don't think we do, so I wanted to mention that. No matter what your workload or your deployment type of platform, we support it. So you're going to actually use, hopefully you'll use, code build for this. And then we have Cloud Deploy. It can deploy both to your ECS server, or you can do this, obviously, to your EC2, but it also can do your deployments for your Lambda functions, because, again, you can have a serverless model as well. And then you have code pipeline. This is where your delivery tool chain is actually going to be developed and created. And then finally, Code Star. If you want to get fast, you want to get started quickly without doing these things individually, it is totally up your choice. You will find with AWS, we believe in choice, and the choice of what you guys want to do versus what we think is right. So you can use either CodeStar or build any of the individual services to create your delivery services toolchain. And then finally, X-Ray, because I did say I was going to talk about it, and only, 3 hands, just a few of you guys raised your hands with it. So obviously, X-Ray is something that you're not aware of. What X-Ray allows you to do is you're able to debug and analyze production applications in the cloud or on-premise, or a combination of the two. And you can actually visualize your services graph to identify bottlenecks. You can troubleshoot. And how can I do this? And this is a distributed troubleshooting. I literally can add one line into my development environment so that X-Ray now starts to track the calls that come not only between AWS services, but I can even track some calls that came through, let's say port 80, HTTP. Oh, it made an outward call to a NASA API, right? And with my NASA API, this is where the bottleneck happened because the API is failing. Maybe I'm being throttled. This is information you need to know outside of just the sphere of your control. So what's great about X-Ray is it's totally designed for a distributed architecture. That means whether it's a third-party API, whether it's on-premise, or whether it's in the cloud, or a combination of it, you really want to get down to what is your application doing, where is it calling out to, and where is it failing, or where are there performance issues. The X-Ray SDK is available, as you can see. We pretty much covered the languages. I don't think we have one that's not covered. For those of you all that's out there, I already know because I get this every time, where is Go? There is a Go SDK, and we're working to make sure that is maintained for all of you guys who are Go advocates. So we really pretty much cover all the languages. And adding a line of code and pretty much turning X-Ray on will save you tons of time when it comes to debugging. And finally, Cloud9, this is your IDE in the cloud. So if you want to do some more, team management of code, not worry about installing something on your workstations, you can write, run, debug your code just with a browser. And this gives you direct terminal access to AWS. This is a great serverless experience. So if you want to quickly spin up an AWS cloud environment, you can use CodeStar to do it, or go and do this as well. We spin up an environment for you guys to have collaboration directly at your IDE level. All right, so now let's get into my favorite part. I've talked enough. Let's do the demo. Hopefully the demo gods will be nice. I hate they do not have a mic, because you guys could ask me questions during this period of time, but they don't. So let's go to the browser. So I already have CodeStar up. Let's first create a new project. So when you go to CodeStar, if you remember anything from what I talked about, this is going to build my complete delivery toolchain. And I'm going to deploy an application with this, not one of the default ones. It's one that I built. So let's kind of try to do this. The first thing you notice is you can filter about the type of application and deployment you want. We have categories. I'm doing a web application. I'm doing a web service. I'm even doing Alexa skill that I want to be a part of my continuous delivery toolchain. So we have various types of deployments here that you can do. You'll see we cover pretty much all the languages: Java Spring, Express, .NET, Python, Ruby on Rails. Your choice, your language, we pretty much cover it. For this one, let's see. Let's pick, I don't know, we'll pick Node, because that's the one in the middle. I'll give it a name, because this is going to build my whole tool chain. You notice because I picked Node with Amazon EC2, now I could have picked Node with serverless. I also could have picked it with Elastic Beanstalk. I just chose EC2. So I'm going to give it a name. Let's see, I'm in Paris. So we'll do the Paris Summit demo. I can choose then where is all my code is going to go. Remember, once again, everything is code, so this is where everything is going to go. I'll go ahead and stick with code commit at this point. You obviously can connect to GitHub. You'll just have to make sure you have your OAuth tokens available, and there's some process to show you how to do that. So I'll just use code commit for this point. Now, this should look familiar. What you see on the screen at this point are those phases that I talked about that are so important if you're doing continuous integration and delivery. So my source will be at code commit. My code deploy will be here. You'll see where the build and test will come in. It'll be built as well. And then CloudWatch for here will be done with my monitoring. CloudWatch doing this here doesn't preclude me from adding one line to my applications and having X-Ray do it as well. This is just the backbone that is going to be created for me. So I'm going to hit Create Project. Since I'm deploying to EC2, for you, those of you I'm sure are very familiar, you need that EC2 key pair. Of course, I have a few that I use. I'm going to just acknowledge that I'm going to do this, and I'm going to create the project. Now, once I hit Create Project, it's going to ask me how do I want to edit my code. If I select AWS Cloud9, then a Cloud9 infrastructure or cloud IDE will be provisioned for me as a part of this. You can switch tools, by the way, at any time. We don't lock you in for the tools that you want to use. I'm going to skip this because it's not really important. I'll just use either the command or our Visual Studio. But what I want to pay attention to or have you pay attention to is blow this up a little bit, is the fact that it has created already my code repository, my code commit. I'm going to go ahead and copy that for later because I'm going to get that code out there. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that for later. So now that I have this code thing, I'm going to go ahead and skip that. It's going to bring me to CodeStar. Now, it's going to start setting up the project. So while it's setting up the project, let's actually talk about CodeStar. Now, the first thing you'll see on my left-hand side, this kind of bar to your left, my sidebar, is the fact that I have an IDE. If this is Cloud9, I will have a Cloud9 set up. You'll see that it's not one connected because I skipped it, but very easy to connect. You can always go back and do that to your dashboard. What you should see also here is a Team Wiki tile. Now, it's going to put, when it finishes building this, it's going to do a default Team Wiki for you. But this is great because not only do you have this continuous integration and continuous delivery tool chain built for you, but you also have a Team Wiki for your project set up. That means that as this team tile gets created, you can customize it, make sure key things are there. This is where it's going to show the commits that were made, who has made the commits, and the like. You'll see that I'm going to have my code, my build, and my deploy, but I also have my team. I can add team members to this list. So if I hit team here, I can select users that I already have, or I can add a new user. If I create a new IAM user, obviously we're tied to IAM, I can give this IAM user a name. So Paris teammate. Display a name. I don't know who to say, so I don't know. And I can make up an email address at Amazon.com. We know that doesn't work, but that's fine. And I can also give this person a type of role. So are they just a viewer? Because they may be a business analyst that's a part of this. Are they a contributor to this project, or are they an owner? And based upon these roles, they get to have various things. So if I had a create here, it would actually then create a user for this. And you'll see that it'll go out to IAM and say, OK, do you want to give this user specific permissions to various services? I'm going to go ahead and cancel that because he doesn't exist. All right, so back at my dashboard, let's look at my code. So if I click code here, you'll notice each one of those services that I talked about actually got created. And so I actually have a code repository set up for me with code actually in it that I can use as my starting point. So while this is building here, let's go out and actually, because this is still building, let's go out and actually pull that code from that. So I'll just go open up, command line here, a bash script here. And so the first thing I want to do, you remember I copied that credentials. If you don't copy it there, it's not a big deal. You can always clone it here. So it'll give you that here, but it says that I've already copied it, as you guys saw. If you are doing this, you need to know if you use code commit, you need to make sure that your IAM user that you're using has Git credential permissions. And it will give you the appropriate Git credentials for it. We want to make sure you're secure, so this is tied with with IAM. So if I hit Git clone here, and then just paste that repo, you see the first thing it's going to do is going to clone, but it's going to ask me for those Git credentials that are associated with the IAM user that's set up in my profile. And so since this is a very temporary one, I have this admin user, so I'll just paste that in. And of course, this is a password I will never remember, so I'll put that in for this demo, and I'll click OK. And then you'll see it start to actually pull down that initial application that gets created for you. Now, using CodeStar, once again, it actually creates a complete and functional application in the platform that you chose, in the language that you chose. And I'll show you how you quickly, get that done. So if you see that I have created this, and let's see, I named that Paris. So you'll see that in this repository now, Paris, I have this application working. There's two things you need to notice here. There's an app spec and a build spec. Now, usually when I do this, the first thing people go, that's great. What if I have an existing application? Very simple. We're going to do this. I have an existing application I'll show you. I'm going to morph this into this. If you want to change this, very simple. You can either use a command line, or you can actually look at these tools. You have your app spec, you have your build spec. You can actually change these and add different things for it. All right, so since I have this set up, I'm just going to copy this really quickly, because then I'll open up Visual Studio. This is my project that I'm going to change to. But then we're going to build a project. In fact, I won't even go that far. We'll do something more simple. I'll just open up this folder. That'll be easier. All right, so I'm going to open up this folder so we can look at this application that's being built. Let's go back really quickly to CodeStar and see where it is. So you see CodeStar is finished at this point. So let me kind of show you what's great about this. As I talked about, this is just a team wiki tile. It's introducing how you can actually customize this. This is great for project management. You can actually say, see my environments if you have provisioned a Cloud9 environment. What you'll see here is really interesting. Now, you'll see that it's saying it's working on something. At this point, at any point in your tool chain, when something happens, I can actually look at my releases. So I know at this point, it has grabbed the information for source. It's done that successfully. We've actually looked at our source repository, and now is actually building that source using code build. So let's take a look at that code build that it's building. So like I said, it provisions all of these services for you. This is the code build project that is being run. You see it's my Paris Summit demo. I can see when it succeeded. I can see what happened. So you'll see that it says that the repository URL has been generated for this project. My output is gone in a folder called artifacts. It is output to the logs. And if I wanted to, you already see that I can have Jenkins integration right here from the console. I can also edit this project. So you'll see it created this for you. But anytime you can edit this, I can update the image. I can add different images to it. I can install certificates and various things. This is just I can put it in your VPC, etc. And you'll see that it already creates a role for our worker role for you. So that's the build. It succeeded. You'll see that as things succeed, you turn green. So at this point, your tool chain, you can actually see where the process is happening. At this point, now we're at code deploy, where it's actually going to deploy and give me an endpoint. If I click that link, what you will see is actually I'm now actually in code deploy. I see that it succeeded, but I can see all the revisions. Now, I'll see this on my dashboard as well, but I can see all the revisions of what happened. I can see the revision location, I can see the deployment groups, and I can deploy a revision from right here. Anything I do at this point, I can actually see not only in CodeStar, but in the actual services. I can create another deployment group. So you see I have one deployment group here. I can have several deployment groups, and all I have to do is add that to my code pipeline. So let's see that code pipeline. You see that it succeeded. I'll show the code pipeline first, and then we'll actually look at the initial application. So this is code pipeline. At any point in time, if I edit this, I can add a stage. So you see it's built the default ones that I've been talking about, those 5 stages. They're here. I have source, I have build, I have stage, application. At any point, I can add a stage, and it's just a matter of clicking a button. So let's say from source to build, maybe I want a test build. So I can name this test build. I can click action, and then you'll see the action category here. I can have, do I want this part of the stage to be approvals? Now, if you guys remember correctly, I said if we were initially doing continuous integration and delivery, you should be doing gated. So approvals should come into play at some of these processes. That's what the gated process means. You're going to get someone that hands-on to look at it, check it, and say it's good to go. I can make this another build at this point. I can give it an action name like test, and I can say what kind of build provider. Do I want the code build to do it? I can add a Jenkins deployment. Do I want to use Solano CI? So at this point, I can have another build done, and then I can add this action. I can select an existing build that already is out there, and you see if I click on that, it comes down with existing builds I have, or I can create a new build project by giving it a name and going from there. So at this point, you can have different stages. There's nothing just because I started with CodeStar that I have to stop there, or that this can't be kicked off and add different stages. So this is your code pipeline. So I'll go ahead and just remove that one. Yes, I want to delete that. And this is your code. Now I have my code pipeline. Now, CodeStar at this point, as I told you, has deployed a full application. This is a full application running, and therefore I have an endpoint to this application running. This is the application. Congratulations, you just created a Node web application. That's cool. Probably not what you guys want to deploy for real. So let's look at an application then that, let me make sure I check my time. Okay, cool. Let's look at the application here. I have a few minutes. We can do this quickly. That I already have up. So if I go to this application, this is just a simple one where I just built something that I could use as a template to pull NASA applications. I have this running in different languages, but this is the first time I've actually done it in Node. So let's look at the template for it. I got to copy it first. So if I have, this is the initial demo, the code rather. So let me just copy this path if I can click correctly. Going a little too fast. All right, so let's just see what it looks like without running it. Oh, I did that a little. Let's try that. Let's see, maybe it'll like that. All right, here we go. So AWS Summit, CICD, will rock your socks off. Just a good template that I can then change stuff. So this is my application I want to deploy. This is in a totally different folder. As you can see, right now I haven't deployed it anything. It's just running locally. So what I want to do, let's go back to here. I have my Git repository. So I want to actually change this then to actually work within this model. So if I go into public, this is where the initial project is. So what I'll do, I'll just do something really simple. I'll go to this project, and then I'll just copy these folders. So I'll just copy all of this. I'll move a few things around. We'll do it simpler than going to the command line. I'll just copy it here. I'll be lazy. All right, so I'll just copy this here. Yep, I'm going to replace that. I'm going to take this package JSON and my gulp file, because again, my package JSON is at the root. I'm going to just take those, I'm going to copy those into the root of this. So I'm going to replace that. Yes, I do want to replace it. All right, so that's that. I'll have to probably do a few more nuances to make it look good. But at this point, I should have a change that should be detected. So let's see at this point if I have a change. So I'll go back to my command line really quickly. I'll do a git status. You see that, yeah, a lot has changed there. So I'm going to do, actually, let me do one more thing before I do that. So if I have this open, like I should, I want to actually make sure that my file then, therefore, let's show all my files. All right, so I need to make sure that the CS is actually seen. So what I'll do here is I'll go ahead and push this so we can get the, because I have limited time. So let me just go ahead and push this. I'll make it look pretty later. So let me just commit. Better yet, I'll just do everything versus, so I'll just do a git commit here. Status. All right, so it's going to get everything. I'll just do, did I commit? No, I don't remember. Let's see, mine is going bad. Yep, okay, I didn't. All right, so I added, do a git commit, message, changed the files to, all right, no changes added. Let's try this one more time, Tara. I can't hear you, got to do loud. I'm just going to do it this way. I usually do, I don't know if you guys know that trick. I do start all the time. I don't know why that didn't work. What am I saying? Oh, changes. Tara, really? Git, commit, you got limited time. You got to hurry it up. Is it -A? How about I do this? M, there we go, working in front of folks. Get it together. All right, now let's try that. There we go. All right, so if I do a git status, what is going on here? I did good at it, I didn't like it. All right. Of course, my workaround doesn't work when I'm on stage, but it'll work off stage. That sucks. Thank you, demo guys. You suck. All right. So what am I doing now? I'm committing. Now that that went awry. Thanks a lot. OK, updating code in Paris badly. All right. OK, now we have this, git log. Oh, God, if I could type, that would be such a fantastic thing. League, really? All right, finally. All right, so we got code. Now let's hopefully, once I push this, it's thinking great. Finally, that took way too long. Really? Typing and talking, I thought I was better at that. Guess not. All right, so at this point, I've pushed code, right? Now, I'm impatient because I have limited time, so I'm going to hit release change here. If I don't hit release change, it will catch up and go, oh, yeah, you have code you pushed, and it's there, but I'm impatient, so I wanted to hurry up and do it. And I need to refresh this because I know that, I'm working on the browser. Now, if you see that I refreshed, because all I did was get the thing, the browser caught up, it is now going to take that link, the changes that I made with that new application, and it's actually going to now run it through that chain. What you also should see here, let me blow this up, is my commit history. So as a part of this dashboard, I immediately see the commits that I made, again, typing badly, updating code, and the commits that are there. I can even go back to those commits as it's going. So it's going to build this source, and it's then going to release it, and then I'm going to have a new application. Now, I know my CS files are probably a little bit awry, quite frankly, because I didn't change them. But now I have a new application that's going to be pushed and off to the races. So I'm getting the blinking to get off stage. So while this is deploying, I'm going to take, you're going to have to yell, it's a big room, any questions you guys have about this. I have links too, so I'll go ahead and put up the links while you guys can ask questions. So I have the build, that's good, the build is going, let's see. Oh, by the way, you can move this thing around. You can also see the application activity. Let me just quickly, because I didn't say anything about monitoring, that's not good, I stressed it and didn't show it. So when you go to CloudWatch, you'll see that I already have, they've set up CPU utilization as one of the metrics. You can obviously tie to the other ones. Let me give you the links to this while that's deploying. Here, I don't want to hide slide. All right, so these are the links. Any questions while we're waiting on the deploy? You can see that hopefully the demo guides, it actually deployed my new application. Any questions? None? I know you're far from me. OK, no questions. All right, well, you guys can follow me on Twitter. I'm Tara W. I do a lot of things around CICD or any languages. Please check out these links that we have here. You can get started in minutes. Let's go back and see if this project is deployed before I get off stage. Let's see. CodeStar, did you finish? Of course you didn't. OK, well, do you too much like right if this build was already ready? Well, with that, I'm out of time. But I am here for you. This is the last session, so I'll stick around. Thank you guys for coming. Please check out any of the links. And if you have any questions, please tweet me. I actually answer tweets about anything else CICD and obviously not typing and get in front of people. All right, thank you guys so much.